Welcome back, True Seeker. Big story yesterday, April 14th, and today, Tuesday, April 15th. Trump pausing $2.2 billion in grant money for Harvard and now demanding an apology from the school to have the grants unfrozen. And just to watch a little bit of this from the White House press secretary, and then I will unveil the ritual that is unfolding before the American people's eyes.
When it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students. There were professors who said that he had engaged in discriminatory behavior against Jewish students. Of course, you had the former president of the university saying bullying and harassment depends on the context. You also had an encampment on Harvard Yard that we all saw play out before the cameras. The university failed to impose formal discipline on any students for this anti-Semitic conduct violations, including the occupation of a campus building and the disruption of classes with bullhorns. The president believes Harvard should apologize to its Jewish American students for allowing such egregious behavior. As for the tax-exempt status, I would defer you to the IRS for any updates.
Okay, so a lot of people in the truth community would say that this is definitive proof that the teeny tiny caps run the show. Donald Trump going out of his way to freeze funds to one of the best known schools in the United States of America. Again, what I've been educating about is how it's not those teeny tiny hats, it's the people who use them almost as if a magician uses a distraction with one hand while they perform the trick with the other. And if you know what to look for, you can see through who's really running the show. Just like if you know the magic trick, you can understand how it's performed. So, the Jesuits. Again, when this nation was being founded, there were no warnings about teeny tiny hats overthrowing the nation or taking over the nation or running the nation, but there were warnings from founders such as Jefferson and Adams, who both were concerned about the Jesuits coming out of suppression and subverting the nation. And again, it is the Jesuits that have subverted the nation and are behind this latest little stunt with the White House and Harvard over supposedly anti-Semitism. Notice the current head of Harvard is Rakesh Khurana, if that's how his name is pronounced. His birthday was the fourth anniversary since the JFK assassination. November 22nd, 1967, he was born. And if you don't know about JFK's remarks about Jesuit Ivy, he made those remarks at the Jesuit University Boston College, not too far from Harvard. You should look into that. But there's a really interesting pattern here. From his November 22nd birthday to yesterday, Monday, when the grant money was frozen, April 14th, the anniversary of the Lincoln assassination. Again, Lincoln blamed the Civil War on the Jesuits. In our history books, it's been scrubbed from the history books about the assassin who got away, the Jesuit John Surratt, whose mother was executed because he was protected by the Vatican. But anyway, April 14th, infamous day in history. And that date can be written 14/4, like 144. Yesterday was the 144th day of Rakesh's age. Today, the day that Trump demands an apology, Donald Trump, who's Jesuit educated, who went to Fordham, today is 144 days after Rakesh's birthday. And you could also say it's the 145th day of his age. I'll come back to that point. But just starting with the 144, remember, in Gematria, Jesuit order equals 144, as does the United States of America. And don't forget that the Jesuits came out of suppression 144 days after the sitting president's birthday, who was James Madison at the time. And day after day, you see these 144 rituals performed by the Jesuits. With regards to JFK, When he died on November 22nd, it was 144 days from his meeting with the Pope. And then his brother died, and it was at 1:44 in the morning. And then years later in 2023, his son files to run for president 144 days after the Superior General's birthday, shortly after the death of Trump's ex wife, 144 days after her own birthday. And it reminds of when Donald Trump posed next to Pope Francis at the Vatican when he became president the first time. That was back on May 24th, 2017, the 144th day of the year. If you're new here, this practice of coding numbers into words, which comes from Kabbalah, Gematria or Gematria, it's pronounced all these different ways because it's such a foreign word. Within English, I learned about this from the book The Secret Teachings of All Ages, published by Manly P. Hall in 1926. There's four ciphers of the English language: the alphabetic order, the reverse alphabetic order, and both orders with numerology applied. Jesuit order equates to 144. It also equates to 72. And think about JFK, who met with the Pope on July 2nd, 72, and who died a span of 144 days later. It goes with the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, becoming Pope on the 72nd day of the year, March 13th, 2013. It goes with the fact that the title President Trump equals 72, who was Jesuit educated. President Biden equates to 72 and 144, also Jesuit educated. And don't forget, Jesuit Georgetown simulated that he would beat Trump in 2020 on June 12th, 144 days before the November 3rd election. Yeah, and just about Trump's ex wife dying 144 days after her birthday. Don't forget that she died exactly 60 weeks into the first ever Jesuit Ignatian year on the same day that Trump said he would run in the upcoming election, which was the 60th. And now he can't stop fighting with 60 minutes. And it goes back to the history of the Jesuits, their first decade with the Roman Catholic Church. Their order was limited to 60 members. Donald Trump also has that Gematria value of 60. But yeah, just another big fat 144. And again, you look at the ADL, the Anti Defamation League, it has the Jesuit encoding in its name. And, there's a reason they put Greenblatt in on the 201st day of the year. And the Pope's the first Jesuit Pope and the first lives in Suite 201 in the Vatican. And it goes back to Catherine the Great preserving the order with 201 Jesuit priests. And it connects to James Madison being the only 201 president who was sitting in office when the Jesuits came out of suppression. Again, there's layers to this, but the point is, you learn this little Kabbalistic code. You realize it is the Jesuits who gave us the calendar that says this ritual goes down April 14th and 15th. And again, the Jesuits gave us the calendar and the language at the end of the 16th century. As we know it, they standardized the 26-letter alphabet. It's very obvious that they put this Kabbalistic system into place. Again, the church had secured this knowledge of Kabbalah in the time of the Crusades with the Templars. That's why the Templar cross in the middle of the Jesuit order's logo. But yeah, just one other point. Again, as I said earlier, today is 144 days after the dean's birthday. You could also say it's the 145th day of his age. Don't forget that Catholic equates to 145, and there's 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament, the Jewish section of the Bible. 145. It goes with Israel, the Jewish nation, being created on the 14th day of the 5th month, and David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, his name having a gematria value of a 145. Don't forget, he died 201 days after the anniversary of Israel's establishment. Like State of Israel equates to 201, like the Jesuit order equates to 201. And if you're new here, Ignatius Loyola equates to 201. Their founder, the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, his birth name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, is 201. There's a reason for all these numbers. In the Hebrew study of letters and numbers, 201 has to do with enlightenment, knowledge. And again, the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati and called it Order of Illuminati, which equals 201. But yeah, that's who it is. The illuminated Kabbalists performing their divisive rituals day after day. They know that by making it seem like Jews are the most protected group, that causes a lot of people to not like Jews and blame things on Jews and think Jews are in charge of the world. Again, the Jesuits are a very clever group, and They know how to rule from the shadows, and they know how to set up the pinata over here, if you will. And that's what they've been doing with the teeny tiny caps for a long time. And don't forget Hitler. You know, his birth certificate name Adolphus Hitler equates to 201, and he modeled the SS after the Jesuits. There's a lot of Jesuit connections with Adolf and what's going on with Musk and his salute. All things we've covered endless times, but yeah, just another big fat 144. And if I didn't finish making the point, I was saying how Jesuit order equates to 144 and 72. Don't forget that the word school equals 72, and in this case, so does Harvard. Money also equals 72, as does things like Bitcoin, which is completely Jesuit controlled. And last year we gave you a spot on call about how Bitcoin would hit 72K on the 72nd day of the year, which is exactly what it did. And I told people you better pull out after that because it's going to dip back down probably into the 50s, exactly what it did. And made a very recent call with the 78th day of the year, how it was going to be a superb day for XRP. Again, all these things are Jesuit controlled. You learn these numbers, you just see how the whole game's controlled. Crypto, the markets, the sports games, the news, just tired rituals, tired patterns day after day. And yeah, also just go back and revisit JFK talking about Jesuit Ivy from Boston College, because it all starts to make more sense in 2025 after all these years of observation. The Jesuit numbers all over the Ivy League ritual with Harvard. And of course, JFK did go to Harvard. So, by the way, with regards to Boston College, don't forget what they did to Johnny Gaudreau, who played his hockey there. He died 144 days before Ohio State won the championship, and Ohio State just went to the White House on 14/4. He was playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Ohio State's in Columbus. Again, Jesuit order equals school. Looks like they're running the Ivies and the Publics. All right, we'll leave it there for now, True Seeker. Again, thank you to everyone who hits the like and the share. And let me know if you like this new format. Until next time, True Seeker.